So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good part of the day, everyone. Thank you all for joining on this summer day, summer Saturday. For some of us, it's it's the time we should be at the beach. I'm Jim Gendel. Thank you all for being here, and I would like to introduce today's topic and today's uh, presenters. So I'm honored to once again. It's not the first time to have Ari Tikka in the studio with us, right? Ari Tikka is a certified last coach with GoC, the Finland-based company. Ari started his career with mathematical engineering, and he has built embedded distributed fault-tolerant software systems over many years. He's a change agent, organizational design consultant since 2006. He has worked on less and less flavored adoptions for various companies. Some of them are very well known, like Flixbus, BMW, and some of the largest Finland banks. He also bases a lot of his work on research by Richard Hackman and Susan Whelan. That's my understanding and observation. Knowing Ari for many years. And also he coaches and mentors large-scale Scrum um, continuously. And also just to be totally inclusive, um, his friend and colleague and partner, Ran Nyman, also with GoC company. He is certified last trainer with us here in the studio. He'll be probably involved in some of Q&A. Ran has a long track record of development experience. He's a developer, having coming from basic, or good old basic C, C++, and Java. Has worked a lot with distributed patterns, team organizational design, UML, distributed systems, test-driven development, SPAC by example, and as well as ATDD. So they both represent GoC company based out of Finland. And today's topic is going to be teamwork, great collaboration and performance for the whole organization. So as those of you that follow and understand LESS, LESS is the large scale, it stands for large scale Scrum. It's organizational design and descaling framework. So a lot of consistency with the topic, between the topic and the meetup. So without any further ado, Ari, I'll pass this on to you. And, please take it away.
All right, thank you. Yes, so what I'm going to talk today is it's mostly about teamwork, and you will see that most of the stuff that I'm talking, it is actually applicable for a larger organization. And also when the larger organization is enabling teamwork, I mean really fluent teamwork for this kind of more like standard teams or smaller teams. All right, so let's see if I get, yes, this is us too, our company. We have something like 20 plus years of experience in software development. And then first, teamwork in 30 seconds. So if we have a real team, compelling direction, and why this doesn't work, supportive organizational context. When the team is putting effort in, they will find their way. So actually teamwork is something very simple when we have the conditions in place. And this works nearly always, not absolutely every time, because there could be some difficult people or so on, but usually it works like this. So the question is, what are these conditions that enable teamwork? And now let's go to this Richard Hackman's research. So this guy here is J. Richard Hackman. I guess many of you have read his books. So he did something like 30 years or more research in Harvard, and his lifetime research question was that what is enabling great performance? And he studied organizations, how to redesign work so that you get great performance, and then ending up up with teams. And here you have some references from him. And so he's quite famous about these conditions or preconditions for teamwork. And he has several versions of it. This teamwork book from 2002, he has 5 conditions and certain sub-conditions. And 2011, he published another book and some articles, and there he has now, instead of 5, he has 6 conditions and a little bit different wording. So I also took the freedom to pick some of these conditions that are relevant for our topic today and that are relevant for less and software teams. So this real team, what makes a team real? It's bounded and stable. We know who is in, who is out for long enough so that people want to invest in collaboration. We have the right people, kind of obvious. The team is authorized. I have underlined this authorized because I very often see it missing. So team is expected to reach some goal, but they are not authorized. For example, okay, you should deliver some feature, but you are not allowed to touch certain code or whatever. There could be any kind of this kind of obstacles. So that's a block preventing the teamwork to happen. And interdependent means that people need each other in order to reach this shared goal or team goal. So this is quite obvious. Then this supportive organizational context. So the very first question when we start to talk about teamwork is that, is the work meant for a team or for individuals? Because a resource pool, it's not a team. It's kind of no use to talk about teamwork. Maybe there's one exception or kind of counterexample, because Toyota is very famous for their quality circles and teamwork, how they are improving the work. And still the workers are doing the same work. So you could be doing teamwork when improving your work, but then the actual work is just individual work. Okay, and the organization, of course, it makes the design, it gives the information, education, resources for these people to succeed. And then the important point is rewarding. If individual work is rewarded, then it doesn't really support teamwork. Again, quite obvious. And then this compelling direction or later compelling purpose. Challenging enough, clear, obvious. Consequential. So it means that we do something, did it work, was it useful? So the team gets immediate feedback if things work. Then they are able to adjust and learn fast, and the teamwork is developing. If the feedback mechanism doesn't exist, then it's just guessing and trying out, and things go into the black hole. And then whole task. Again, if we want to develop teamwork and the team intelligence, this goal needs to be a whole so that the team can really think how we are doing it, what is included there. So even if there would be a backlog full of small details and it's very clear, just deliver everything, it wouldn't be a whole task. It is just a bag of details. It doesn't work. All right, so a picture about this consequential. Some years ago, we made some presentation, we called it fearless leadership. So fearless leadership is taking the risk. They are investing into building these feedback mechanisms. It's sometimes dangerous in organizations. So this is actually the thing that enables teamwork in software organizations. So sometimes, or quite often, I say that continuous integration is the most important agile practice. So it enables feedback. And so this is quite less language. So the teams, they work with the whole product directly with the customer, and they learn what the customer needs. And then they have this integration thing, feedback and integration, how they can integrate their code and their knowledge continuously. And then this left one, everyone reflects, and we have continuous improvement running in the system. So really, this would be the goal if you want to have teamwork enabled in your organization. Then just a detail from Hackman's research and sayings. So he, in his articles, he's often just saying something based on his experience and intuition. And he's saying that 60% of the teamwork of the great performance is prepared beforehand in the organizational design and preparing the mechanism and things for the people to work. 30% is created when launching the team, so that the team can actually start working and there's not too much struggle. And only 10% is coaching while the team is working. So if you think about some team development offering that is available, like that, okay, people need to understand differences in the team, so other people are different. So it's affecting that 10%, and inside that 10%, it's actually influencing maybe one person. So it's actually 1% influential to the teamwork. So I don't really recommend to spend your time in this kind of learning to know each other, but more with things that are along the continuous improvement goal. All right, then about teamwork, so another topic. Often you hear the word self-organizing. It's very vague, because I mean, if you put some people together, they will self-organize. And quite often the result is not very good. So it actually requires some skill to make a team that is organized so that the teamwork actually works. And Hackman developed this kind of categorization or matrix explaining teamwork. So on the left side, there's this, what are the different things that team is doing? So the obvious is team is doing the work, executing the tasks. Then it's monitoring and managing the work, like in Scrum process. And then this designing the team and its organizational context. It means that the team is deciding about hiring and firing and that kind of things. That requires already a very mature team, and it takes effort from the team. So it is no more, it's not necessarily optimal for the performance thinking of the reaching the goal. And then if we are looking at the top words there, setting overall direction, I mean, that fails very often. It takes long calendar time, a lot of effort, and it's very risky. So if we are in a bigger organization that is designed for teams, it's kind of optimal that people are using most of the effort in where they are good, where they are trained. So I mean, in software, they actually are building the software. So the proposal is that this self-managing teams would be optimal, where teams are doing the work and monitoring how the work goes, which is quite much what teams are doing in Scrum. Okay, now I'm giving quite often trainings in-house about this, usually in-house about this teamwork. And at this moment, people, let's say internal agile coaches or whatever, they are usually very frustrated. So these conditions, we are just missing them. Our organization sucks and we are just expected to go and make teams work, and it's not possible because of these conditions. So this is usually a point of high frustration. And now this is very brief explanation how you can improve the external conditions for the team, how you can influence the organization. It is doing continuous improvement. So the first thing is that you find others and who we also want to improve teamwork, and together with those people you learn and communicate how the organizational system actually works. Now this is extremely important, because if you can create some knowledge here that is useful for the decision makers, the managers, then suddenly you become their friends, you are useful, they are giving you resources, and you get things rolling. If you don't have anything to explain to them that they don't know, or if you are not able to explain how the system works, then you are just whining. Then you are nuisance, and you're just not, well, fuck off, go and do your work. So this creating the knowledge about the system is critical. And then you will find ways to collaborate with the decision makers and find ways to change and improve the conditions for the teamwork, and then you get things going. And this can be small changes first, and then at some point it could be a less adoption. So this is how you can initiate the change in the organization that is then finally ending into some less adoption. And then you coach the teams and things in this new setting. So this is very brief. And to tell the truth, it has taken some years to condense it into these 3 points to leave all the other stuff away. But we are adding some material to this page, coordinationchaos.com. So now there's a very basic video, 4 minutes in the bottom, cure for coordination chaos, and there will be more about this topic. All right, so that was the organizational setting, creating the design for the teams. And then, of course, people interact in the team. So they talk to each other. And I often say that how you talk to other people is leadership. It equals leadership. And also in the team, it's a good idea to practice this in a certain way. And my choice is that there's a very simple and lightweight feedback process or feedback mechanism or technique. And then if necessary, if there are some emotions involved, then we can start a process with nonviolent communication. So recognizing needs and feelings and taking that into account, improving connection between people. And if we need some more like technical problem solving, then we can use coaching dialogue just to learn to have a fruitful dialogue.
Ari,
yes, please.
Before we move on this, there was this kind of a question about that. What is the difference between a team and work group? This kind of how basically it was the topic that we covered previously, this kind of a teamwork. But before we move on to the leadership, then could you have some short discussion about it?
I'm kind of careless in using the word team and group. Usually I'm using the word team when I'm in the work context, because then people understand, so it's a group that is kind of working. If I'm talking about some maybe group dynamics and it's maybe more about some social stuff inside the team or group, then I'm maybe referring to group. And if someone is saying a working group, it might refer to a team or group that is mature enough so that they are able to actually work well. So that's a working group. So I really can't say anything definite about this.
Yeah, some
Sorry.
people. Yeah, I know that some people have some clear definitions about it. That's how to define the working group and things like that.
Yes,
So,
sorry,
you
I don't have. No, I'm more like, how I work is that sometimes I think I'm like a thermometer that is dropped into the team, and then I start to sense and work with the team. So having specific definitions is not really my take.
Yeah, I think also this is the same, that it's people that need to work together, and what you call them is then, do you call them a work group or a team? It doesn't really matter. You need to get it working somehow, and then it could be a team or it could be a working group that acts as a team.
Yeah. Yes. So
and there's yeah.
Yes, please.
If we move on, there's the next questions about how to gain agreement from the leadership to create this kind of a better organization or better organizational design. But I think that's the topic that you are just starting to explain.
Actually, that topic was the previous slide. I mean, it's this shortest possible process, how you can, and now I repeat that this learning and communicating, creating knowledge about how this organization works. If the leaders say, there's a point, I want more, then you have solved the thing. Then they will collaborate with you. Then you have the opportunity to create something. But if you can't grab their attention, if you kind of fail to offer them useful knowledge, then it might succeed. But well, this would be how I would approach it. And it's not easy. It's difficult. And then how, well, I mean, less books, hundreds of experiments. That is exactly this, creating knowledge about how the organization works. You can experiment in your local environment where you have some power to experiment things, and then think if it is applicable to wider organization, or if you find something small that you can sell to the decision makers. So that's creating that knowledge is a huge topic, and there's a lot of sources where you can learn it. If well, that's all what I can say, and what is somehow fitting into the topic.
Yeah.
Or this meeting today.
Yes, I know that it's very broad question, but so maybe need.
If I start to talk, I can talk 1.5 hours. Just, I mean, you wouldn't like. You would be bored or tired. Okay, so back to here. So my choice for improving the interaction, and why this? So I like this set of methods because they aim at improving collaboration in the team and success in the work. They are behavior focused. So it's not about, okay, I understand you, we are happy now, that kind of stuff. It's okay, well, we have norms in this team, so this is how we do things. Is it okay? Fine, good. Okay, well, now that didn't work as expected. Well, how can we improve? So it's a kind of work-oriented and improvement-oriented set. And if there are some deep social problems, then maybe something else, but this would be the default. And then I'll just briefly explain this feedback technique. So Ran, could you, there was some noise and I got distracted. Could you mute your mic? But it's muted. Oh, okay, sorry. So now this was an example of this. So I was just creating an opening, what happened, consequence and request. And because I was referring to a very specific thing, then Ran could say, okay, well, it didn't happen. So we can fact check. just one example about this. So this is very brief, and you can start a feedback process even about some very heavy topics with the simple, because if you are using this kind of feedback, you don't expect any special things. You don't expect a reaction. You're just saying, okay, this happened, please, could you? And then you ask some doable request. So very simple. And then just a story. I was explaining this feedback process in a team, and there was a certain very difficult person, and he said, but you should think first. So I added this think, and it's actually very useful. So think first. Is it worth starting this feedback? Is it worth to spend my social points being the person who is always nagging and so on? So think before giving feedback. But if something is important, I need to give this feedback to improve our collaboration, then do it. Okay, then going to the coaching dialogue. I like this coaching dialogue a lot. So how about spending 10 minutes in thinking together about this problem? And then what if I'm just asking questions so that you have the freedom to think, and then I'm asking questions, Ran is saying something, and I'm then returning in my own words. And then, well, instead of just thinking alone, Ran is saying things. It's activating different parts of the brain. I'm talking it back. He's, well, I didn't actually mean that, and it's activating different parts of the brain. So things, we find out much more. And then every now and then we just check where we are on the map and then go back. So, but more about this in this kind of book, Quiet Leadership by David Rock, very recommended. It's a full coaching process, in my opinion, very well productized coaching approach. And just about this, in general, it's a good idea to explain this coaching to everyone in the team, because it makes, if you are the only one who's actually using this dialogue, still it makes easier for you if everyone knows what you're doing. Okay, then to this emotional stuff. This is my recommendation. This guy started to think about nonviolent communication something like 1960s, and was just going around the world and teaching it. And some thoughts about this nonviolent communication. So it is a strategy. You can choose if you want to use it. It's optional. He sometimes called it the language of life. If you want to speak violent language to yourself and others, you are also free to choose that. For example, if you are soothing yourself all the time, well, I should exercise more, I should lose some weight, and I should maybe be more focused to work. And when you are using this word should, it actually means that I am bad because I'm not already something. I should force myself to do something even if I don't like, so it's kind of forcing myself. And actually, I'm not going to do that, and I know it already. So if you hear a lot of this shooting in some organizational setting, some meeting, management is talking that we should do this, we should do that. Well, they are not going to do it. It's just violent talk. Okay, so what is the other option? Is first there's this philosophy that everyone is responsible for their own feelings and actions. If something happens, it triggers something in me. It's my choice. It's something in me. It's not in you. Take that responsibility and also give that freedom, autonomy, and responsibility to the others. Another topic, perspective is connection before communication. If you talk to someone who is all saying yes, but, well, you don't have connection. There's no communication. Or if there's a conflict, you probably are not heard before you create a connection. So it's very relevant in work setting. And this giving empathy to yourself and the other is the key. I'll explore it a bit later. And now talking this nonviolent language with the formal sentences that you can read in the books is very difficult. I'm not able to do that, or very seldom, but already the intention that I want to hear you has an impact in human interaction. And then just understanding this, having this vocabulary and understanding the basic logic is very useful in analyzing conflict. So it's useful even if you are not fluent in this language. So just briefly, when something happens, I have feelings, but the feelings are just an indicator if my needs are met or not. And then I can do something. So needs is the key. And then just, I'm picking just, there's a lot of needs, no consensus. You can pick your vocabulary. I'm just showing some needs that could be helpful even with this training that I'm giving to you. So being, the left top corner, being heard. If you think any kind of communication situation, conflict or whatever, guess, do you have the need to be heard by the other? You can guess that the other person also has this need. So if there's a conflict, you can say, please cool down. I really want to hear you clearly. So if you could just speak a little slower, I can then understand you better. So if you express that you want to hear the other one, it is kind of cooling them down because their need is heard. And then they can kind of start to, you have a bit more connection and you can communicate a bit better. And then whenever you are in a position to, let's say, give feedback to some person or to, let's say, give task, if that ever happens, give new work, whatever, you are touching people's autonomy, potentially. And autonomy is very universal need, and it's a very important motivation factor at work. So it's an important need. Just an example of need. So if you violate people's autonomy, you will get a reaction. All right, so this is really fascinating topic. I really recommend that you read the book. It's easy read and then you understand more. Okay, then this mystical topic, group dynamics. Here are some people. Wilfred Bion on the top right, he kind of initiated this group dynamics tradition that then later evolved into Tavistock Institute in London, which is very famous about their research of complex human systems and groups and so on. And then the guy on the right bottom, he's Fuchs. And I happened to work with a group therapist, organization and consultant who had studied with this Fuchsian tradition. So my understanding of group dynamics is actually coming a lot from that tradition. And then Susan Whelan here studied some decades in some university that I forgot now, group dynamics or teamwork or team development. She studied 600 teams and had some interesting findings, for example, like that 50% of people have never experienced teamwork. They could be your decision makers, even probably. Well, so it could be that the people who are designing your organization have never experienced teamwork, how this kind of, what we call clan control works, so that how kind of unwritten rules guide people's behavior so that they can work very fluently together. So they have not experienced that. So, all right. And the other finding from Susan Whelan was that it takes minimum 6 months for a group to reach this working group skill or become a mature team. So group dynamics, it sounds very mystical, but it is actually like this. So there's always yet another person in the room, in the team. And it's an imaginary person. So there's actually like an empty chair in the room. And every group member, every team member is imagining someone on that chair. And of course, because there are different people, they imagine a different kind of person. Oh, sorry, no, that was too fast. They, of course, imagine different kind of person in that chair. And when the team is new, okay, and that imaginary person there, I sometimes call it's the team. People say the team decides, the team supports, the team learns, the team. So they are referring to this imaginary person. And this imaginary person is also an authority. When the team is developing norms, what is the accepted behavior? It's this person who is controlling that in people's minds. And there's all kind of reasons why people imagine different kind of personalities on that chair.
Would this person be then the what is it, the 30% of the success of the team when you launch the team? What kind of a person you create there?
Well, it's critical. I agree. I half agree with you. Yes. So it is critical how the team starts, how the team is launched, how ready the preconditions are for the team to start to work. It is influencing in how this person is kind of developing there. I will get there just in a minute. So I was saying something about this. Yes, and of course, when the team kind of learns, they work together there's all kind of things, conflicts and others. So the different team members start to have a more coherent image about this person on the chair. Oh yes, and of course this person doesn't have a body, doesn't have any senses, doesn't have any brains, because it's imaginary. So at some points, some people take the position of that person. So for example, when the team is starting, the team is choosing a leader from their members. So the chosen leader is kind of personally sitting on that chair and others are looking up to that person. Okay, you are now physically our leader. All right, so I haven't really found any books about this. Susan Whelan's book, Creating Effective Teams, is best. It's very kind of practical guide to team members and team leaders how to develop team here. But even in that book, I actually have not seen this team life cycle explanation like I'm explaining it now. Time is flying. Sorry. How much time do I have? As long as people are hanging on the line, is it so?
You have about 10, 15 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. I try to speed up a little. Okay, so the team starts this. What happens here is that the team starts leadership. They start to compete about leadership. So different team members say, I think we should first clarify the goal. Another person is saying, no, we should first clarify the boundaries and who is in, who is out. And then this ping pong game is going on until the team agrees. Everyone is agreeing that this guy in the middle is our chosen leader who will help us out of this confusion and uncertainty and anxiety. And then that person is leading the team and helping them to clarify the boundaries and goal and so on. And now at this moment, the team, the yet another person is a small child, so it needs a lot of care and safety. And this person who has been chosen there needs to kind of nurture this new team. And this is absolutely necessary. Without this dependent phase, there will not be development in group dynamics. And this is a thing that I hope you remember. So you cannot skip this. Okay, so people become dependent, they comply, they submit to this leader, and the first agreements are made, the first norms are agreed. And then while the work goes on, people try out work, the individuality starts to emerge. People say, well, I was stupid when I agreed, but now I actually disagree. It's stupid that we agreed that. And some other people agree differently, so there are subgroups and some conflicts and disagreement in the team and some negativity and so on. So at this phase, whoever takes the situational leader's position needs to appreciate kind of differences and solve these conflicts successfully and show the strength of the leadership. Whenever there's a conflict, it's always safe to say, sorry guys, now there's disagreement and arguing about this thing. I should have taken it up earlier. How about if we now take it on the table and agree? So draw the negativity towards yourself, but like that you are showing your own strength and you are saving the team from the danger of kind of going or breaking down. Okay, well, we could talk a lot about that. Then the cohesion phase. Now, there's this very famous Tuchman model, forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. It's kind of observing what happens, but it's not very useful in practice for any situations. And it's calling this third phase norming. I disagree. Norms have been created already. This is a cohesion where the team is kind of enforcing the norms that they have already created. So it's kind of confusing. Anyway, what is important here is that the team has solved the internal anxiety. They are friends, they are a beautiful team, they perform beautifully, but they are unrealistic. They really are not yet so performant. So it's like young people who think that they can solve all the problems in the world, and it's those stupid adults who are kind of not understanding. And this is a very necessary phase because the team is collecting their courage to face the outer world. So it's very good, very useful. Sometimes teams are stuck here, and that's bad. Then they need some encouragement. If the team is working well, then someone here is taking leadership and taking feedback from the external world and say, hey, how about doing some work? And then the team is going forward to this mature phase. And when the team is in this mature phase, things just work. Later, I have some list of all the beautiful things that happen here. And interesting is that they happen only here, not earlier. All right, so, and now the logic that I like to explain is that whenever there's a problem, then the team is using the appropriate group dynamics pattern. It's not like leveling from norming, storming, but it's using the best kind of group dynamic pattern to solve a problem. And then the pictures that I showed you somehow explain how the pattern works. And now, if the team is not going this development path, it will not be as good. And this is, I think, valid for not only kind of traditional ideal teams, but also for large organization meetings, projects, some communities that are not meeting all the time, that are meeting only regularly and so on. And I won't read.
Ari,
yes.
Before you move on, there is a couple of questions about
this
all
right.
Leadership
yes.
of the team. So basically, there's
yes.
this kind of the leadership role is just to in the beginning set the goal for the team, and then the team self-organizes and it doesn't need the leader. But basically what you explained there was that when the team is formed, they basically need in the beginning leaders so they can basically
Yes.
get over the first stage of actually becoming a team.
Yes. And this group dynamic progression happens always. If the Hackman conditions are good, it's a good chance that if you just put people, let's say only developers in a team, they will kind of start to work. So they have this competition of the leadership. Then someone is saying, okay, I will help us to solve this problem. And then some other person says, I will help us to solve this problem, and things go forward. If the Hackman conditions are not so good, then the anxiety in the team is bigger. People have more uncertainty. Shall I commit or not? Should I invest my effort here or not? And then it requires more skill from the situational leader to kind of help the team to solve this confusion. It is still possible. It is not as effective. And of course, it's more difficult to actually perform when the conditions are not so good. So there is always this situational leader. And in some cases, in some organizations, it is set beforehand, okay, you are the Scrum Master in the team. You are the leader for the group dynamics. You are facilitating. And then the team is looking at the Scrum Master. Well, if the Scrum Master is good, it's fine. And then if the Scrum Master is skilled, then he or she is then helping the team to form and then going to background and letting the team work and letting circulate the facilitation responsibility, whatever, to kind of help the team progress. I mean, but this is again, big topic. What I don't like is that there's a product owner inside the team, an obvious leader. There's another leader, nominated Scrum Master in the team. And then, I mean, that makes it difficult. So it probably happens that those guys are just giving tasks and people say, okay, well, I don't want to be the third one and I don't want to mess around here. So they are just doing their stuff. Okay, so let's try to go forward. Okay, so you will get these slides. You can check this list later. I want to pick here some things that here, only here, the team is able to manage the time. Only here, the team is able to reflect how the team works. Earlier, individuals may have the courage to say, I screwed up. But only here, the team is able to say, okay, we as a team, we failed here. We need to improve, for example. Okay, there are many dysfunctions. In a training, we would go this through. Some, for example, happy families that the team is stuck to the third phase. They are just happy how beautiful we are as a team, but they don't care about getting stuff done. Depressed team is when the conditions are really bad and the team is not able to kind of work. They are depressed because they are abandoned, for example. A struggling team, if the conditions are not perfect, but the team is able to somehow work around it and find out things themselves. Okay, just a couple of slides about process coaching. Now, this is the typical Scrum Master topic. So you go and you explain the process and say, okay, this is how the team works. So this is a statement that I would like to put on the wall in the very beginning. So we work as a team. It means that we learn to share workload, competence, and leadership in this team. So everyone is contributing to this goal from day one. Just a notion about this Scrum sprint planning technique. Whenever I go into organization, I meet a software team are you using Scrum? Oh, yes. Are you doing this? No. And if you don't split the work into small tasks, it's very difficult to share workload and competence. And so very basic thing. And okay, retrospectives, you try them out in the beginning, but they really start to work when the team is mature. But still, it's a good idea to start from the beginning, but just have some patience if it doesn't work beautifully immediately. And then about this larger organizations that I promised, I mean, I didn't mention anything about the size of the team. Of course, it's easier in smaller teams. It's more difficult when teams grow, but still a lot of these things apply if you have 30 people. And even if you have bigger organizations, still you have these individuals' needs, individuals' projections, expectations. So all this knowledge is at least partially applicable also in larger organizations. So that's why I dare to say that knowing this stuff actually helps you to run projects. And so, all right, then our ad. So we have a public training for 2 days and an internal training for 4 days. The internal training is longer because we include then the continuous improvement stuff that is actually helping to change the conditions for teamwork. So now I'm done. Well, it took an hour.
Okay. Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ari, and thank you, Ran. Folks, it's okay to spill over, maybe have another 5.
Yeah, sure. I'm fine if you have questions.
If you guys are, it's late for you, so I want to make sure you don't burn your Saturday night on this kind of, boring stuff. I'm just kidding. Everything we do is pretty exciting and everything. But I recognize you are late in the day. So let's take another 5, 7, maybe minutes, folks. If you have any questions, please ask.
Yes.
There was one question earlier that I didn't ask, but it was this kind of not depending on any topic. It was more about how about then this kind of inter-team communication between this kind of different teams, basically. How would
yes.
that one in this kind of a bigger organization?
Yes. Well, then I would start to look that by checking the Hackman conditions for the team of teams. I mean, I guess it's a less requirement area, for example, 5 teams in a requirement area. So how are these conditions happening for that requirement area? If there's a lot of need to communicate there. So, and then it's a community. So probably there is some community actions. It could be like doing the product backlog refinement together. How is that done? Then when that kind of meeting is happening, then applying this, checking the group dynamics, checking that initial dependency happens. Then if there's conflict, then using this technique, okay, sorry, I didn't realize that beforehand, it's my fault. So you can apply this to that kind of things. Then let's say if we have some coaching community, which is my favorite topics because it fails so often. Well, it's kind of across teams again. Well, maybe I don't start to use your precious time for brainstorming about that. If you are interested about that, you could check some of our previous presentations like XP 2000.
And for that, do me a favor also, maybe you want to send me a link when you send me your PowerPoint.
I can send you a link about this, yes.
Yeah, I'll include it in the distribution.
Yes.
And I think Oleg has something in his mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So for me, the question is, when the team is forming, what is the role of line manager in forming the team? So let's say he commits part of his competence. So some, I don't know, architect, whatever, developer, there are some testers, etc. But what is my role as a line manager? When
So
that team I am absorbing, I'm line manager.
Okay, very good. So in my world, line managers, scrum masters, and coaches, they work together. They are working to improve the organization. So I would not have over specialization there. So line managers share the coaching competence. For example, so as a line manager, you go and see what is happening in the teams, and you kind of learn this, observing the group dynamics, and you know about development, so you can see what is happening there. And you don't need always to immediately intervene, but you understand what is going on. And then, so as a line manager, you participate in designing the organization. So that's, in a way, in some organization, you're called a disciplinary leader. So you have some money and power, and you can talk to the department leader or whatever. And so you can influence in that way. And then, so those would be how you can actually influence. And then, since I guess you fire and hire, so when conflicts escalate to you, you need to talk to people. So that's how you do. So then if you work well together with the scrum masters, and you know what happens in the teams, you have kind of together talked how you are going to promote teamwork, how it's really intended to work in your organization. Then when you talk to people, you are kind of, how would I say, you have some certainty why you are saying to people, okay, well, actually, that's not how we are working here. So because we want to reach the goal and we are having teamwork, so we need to share work and competence in the team. It means that everyone is taking also this easy task. There are no princesses here. I'm just improvising what it could be. So having this kind of teamwork among the coaches and also the product owner, of course, it helps you to work with individuals. So this is something just about the line manager's role. So,
and then, yeah, I can add there something that Ari forgot to mention, is this kind of taking also this kind of a responsibility that organization is improving all the time and support that, because that typically organizations, they get to some point and then they stop improving because they don't have time to improve. So you as a manager, you typically have time and you see the problems. You can then basically say that, hey, now we are stuck here. We need to actually improve things, and then encourage people to spend time on that also.
Yes. And since you have already kind of a position where you can see more than many other people, then you have a better position to start to create knowledge about the organization. You talk to Scrum Masters and you're asking, well, there's a problem, how does it actually work? And then how could we express it so that we can kind of share it with people so they understand and work better? So this kind of, which is the knowledge creation work that I was so much emphasizing earlier.
So from what I'm hearing, basically, line managers should be kind of agile coaches cross organization.
Exactly. So you are in the same, as I said, you work together them, except that you have more power. Which means that because you have more power, you are more threatening to the people. So when you walk to the room, people, the status is threatened, their autonomy is threatened, their relatedness is threatened. So that's why coaches can do some things and you can do some other things, but you collaborate with them.
That's clear. Yeah. I have to behave myself also as a manager so that people don't shut up in front of me and actually talk.
Well, it's just because you have the position. I mean, you can't avoid it.
Yeah.
It's your position that is so frightening.
I pinged in the chat the image of what good manager could be how a manager could become a good coach if they take the long journey to actually be one. That's a combination of stance and
Yes.
capabilities.
And
Just not labeling. On Friday I was a manager. On Monday I'll just rename myself in their coach.
you know, before this agile fad that has now lasted quite long, there was always managers in organizations. There were team leads, and if the team lead was competent, I mean, there was very good teamwork. So it can work in many ways.
Yeah.
There was interesting questions in the chat. It was this kind of related to less, but it was more about how can or should the team be this kind of self-sufficient and have all the knowledge inside itself, or should it have this kind of a outside help? So Ari, could you share a couple of words? How do you see this kind of a dynamics there?
Well, first thing would be that I would expect that the team is learning. So if there's some random infrequent thing, of course they can use some external resource, but if something is repeated, then the team needs to learn it. And if there's something that is blocking or often blocking, then the team needs to learn. So just some cases. I was in an organization with some PHP teams. They had their own stuff, their own code. And one team was dependent from another team just to make a small change so that they can deliver their feature. And the other team was too busy doing their own stuff. So against the culture, the dependent team was taking one day. They were everyone was looking at the code of the other team. And then they understood, okay, that's where we need to make a change. They made a change and delivered their feature. So, I mean, that is just an example how you could do. Another thing, I mean, Ran, I think you remember this example, the very famous article from where Scrum is based by Ikuchiro Nonaka, who studied several organizations, Xerox, I don't remember all those, that were struggling. This big organization needed to create a new product or they would be losing business and so on. So they took the best people, moved them to the other part of the city and said, okay, you are here, no one is calling you. You have all the resources, all the freedom, but you need to come out with a new product in 3 months. So in one of these example cases, real cases, one of the members was studying electronics design with a master's degree during a couple of weeks because they didn't have time to wait for an external company to deliver some electronics. Am I correct, Ran? I think you taught this example.
Yes. So basically, there was this kind of an idea there that you can learn many things. You need time for that. And if there is lots of time pressure, it could be very exhausting. So there was this kind of warning also that
yes.
if you don't really have time to learn, then you actually could burn yourself out there. So there was this kind of, you can learn, but then you need to balance the learning and doing.
So coming back to my first statement, I really prefer learning over coordination. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Ari, and thank you, Ron. Let's see. Well, folks, if there are any other questions, why don't we call it a day?
We can call it a day.
Well, what? In the evening?
Yes, we can call it a day.
Well, for you, it's an evening time. So I want to thank you both, Ari and Ron, to coming out and doing this for us. This has been a very interesting conversation and great references to Marshall Rosenberg's work and Richard Hackman's, and just very good stuff. I suspect you will be soon sharing with me your references already, the deck.
Yes.
And I will take care of the recording, folks. So if you have any colleagues or that would like to listen to this, or if you want to, come back and replay it, you can always have access to that. Other than that, I just wish you all a very happy weekend, great weekend, good time, enjoy. And once again, thanks, Ari and Ron, to coming out and doing this for us.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
We'll keep
Thank you.
information.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Great section. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All the best.
Thanks.
Got this. Cheers. Bye-bye.